this video, we're going to talk about how you can stop playing the same chord patterns. I'm going to show you two simple but effective things you can do so you can start creating new and fresh music. The first one I want to talk about, and this is something I really like doing, is just change the starting point. Let's say you typically play like a 2, 3, 4. I'm in the key of G major. There's the 2, 3, 4. Let's say that's like your go-to, one of your go-to chord patterns. One thing you can do is, rather than just starting on that 2, which is the starting point, change that to a completely different chord. So instead of doing, instead of playing the 2, what if I play like the 6? And that's one way you can just break up your normal way of doing things. Instead of playing that 2, 3, 4, all I did was I just changed that starting point. So instead of playing this 2, I just played that 6, right? This is a 6, essentially in the key of G major. So I just played that 6, and then went back to that 3, and then went to the 4. So that's like a very simple but effective thing you can do whenever you're trying to switch up your go-to chord patterns, the things that you always default to. And this is something I love doing. It's very simple, but it's something that can really change and give you kind of like a new and fresh feel in your music. And all I did was I just substituted that 2 for the 6. So that's the first one. Just change the starting point. It gives it a little slight subtle difference, but it sounds really dope and it sounds good. So that's the first one, change the starting point. The second one I want to talk about is just replace one chord. Now this is one that I really like doing as well. And there's a couple of ways you can approach this. The first one I want to talk about is just utilize borrowed chords. I'm going to explain what that is in a second, but let's say your typical chord pattern is like this 2, 5, 1. That's a very common chord sequence in music. 2, 5, 1. We got that minor, dominant, and then we're back on the 1. All right, we're in the key of C major. Now, a borrowed chord is essentially a chord that you borrow from a parallel mode or key. Now, we have this C major scale. We're in the key of C major. We have the C major scale. But also, this C major scale can be called the C Ionian mode. And it's basically, a mode and scale are essentially interchangeable. They essentially mean the same thing. And when we say, hey, borrow a chord from a parallel mode or key, you're essentially using a mode that's built off of that C major scale. So there's also, well, let me turn on scale detection in Apollo. We have the C major scale or C Ionian mode, but there's also another mode you can use. There's a C Phrygian mode, right? There's also C Mixolydian mode. There's different modes that you can use that's built off of the C major scale. But basically, when you borrow a chord, you're essentially taking a chord from one of these different modes. There's a C Aeolian mode, C Locrian mode, C Mixolydian mode, C Phrygian mode, C Lydian mode. There's a lot of different modes. And maybe I might do a video on that later. But essentially, we'll take a chord that exists in one of those different modes. So if I have this 2, I have this 5, 1, and let's say I want to substitute this 5 for a borrowed chord, right? I want to stick with this 2, but instead of playing this 5, what if I substituted that for that chord? So instead of doing, I could do, I just borrowed the chord. This is actually from the C Phrygian mode, right? If we look at all these notes, so we have D flat, F, B flat, C. All these notes exist in the C Phrygian mode. There's that D flat, F, B flat, and then C. All those notes are in the C Phrygian mode. So I'm essentially borrowing a chord from another mode. So if you typically are playing like a 2, 5, 1, substitute that 5 for a borrowed chord. And by doing that, it just gave the chord pattern a completely different feel. That sounds good. So that's the first one when it comes to like replacing one chord. Just utilize borrowed chords. The second one I want to talk about under this whole umbrella of like replacing one chord is chromatic shifts. Chromatic shifts are extremely easy. It's basically where you essentially play a chord that's a half step above or below the target chord that you're landing on. Now, if we have this 2-5-1 again, 2, yeah, that's good. All right, let's say this 1 is my target chord. So I have this 2. Rather than playing this 5 next, I want to utilize this whole idea of like chromatic passing chords or chromatic shifts. You can look at it either way. But rather than playing this 5, I want to substitute that chord for a chord that's a half step above or below my target chord. Now my target chord is the C major type chord. I could play the chord that's a half step above this 1, so I could play this chord. Right? It's the same chord type, but I'm just playing it a half step above, and then I land on that 1. So instead of doing, I could do, doesn't that sound good? And all I did was I just replaced one chord, and I just utilized this concept of chromatic shifts or just adding in chromatic passing chords. So that's just another simple but effective thing that you can do whenever you're trying to just break up your normal chord patterns that you normally do. So we talked about change the starting point, right? Instead of playing, if you play like a 2, 3, 4, change it up and change that starting point. Start on the 6. I'm telling you, that will open up new possibilities and new doors for you as you're creating new and fresh music. And then we also talked about just replacing one chord, adding in the borrowed chord, and then also adding in chromatic passing chords to switch up, the flavor of things. And yeah, I mean, those are two simple but effective things that I like to do whenever I'm trying to break up my normal routine of going to certain chords. I'm telling you, it really changes the game. I hope you were able to get something out of this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.